Eyes up, Guardian, it's time for another Strand build. When Bungie announced the changes that are coming to Heart of Inmost Light, most players reacted kind of like this.
Look how they massacred my boy.
But I'm here to tell you the battle is not lost, and honestly HOIL is still really good. You just gotta play it a little bit more attentively now. So allow me to show you this build, which is incredibly good and is very much endgame viable. The class is gonna be the Strand Titan, also known as the Berserker. For the barricade, make sure you pick Rally Barricade. We're not actually going to use it for defensive purposes, more for offensive ones. It's more of a the best defense is a great offense type of situation here. For the jump, use whatever feels good to you, but I think Catapult Lift is the best option. For your melee, you have Frenzied Blade, where you dash forward, slashing the targets in front of you in a horizontal direction and severing them. Severed targets deal decreased damage and will unwind into a tango when defeated. And we really want those tangos because they do interact with a lot of our other abilities as well. For our grenade, we're going to use the Shackle Grenade, where you throw a bola at your targets and they will get suspended upon impact. This will pretty much be the bread and butter of the build because it will suspend a lot of targets in its immediate vicinity upon impact. Suspended targets will not be able to move or fire at you, which is one of the best debuffs in the game, and it will also stop unstoppable champions. In terms of aspects, it's not like we have a lot of choice at the moment, but let's go over what they do real quick. For the first aspect, we have Into the Fray. Destroying a tango or casting your super grants Woven Mail for nearby allies. While you have Woven Mail, your melee regeneration rate is increased. We'll use this one mostly to throw tangos at our feet, which will grant us Woven Mail. You can also just destroy the tangos for the explosion effect, but you have to go to the green remnant, which stays on the field for a while, in order to get that Woven Mail. To be fair, during the current season, destroying tangos will be your better option because of a couple of the seasonal mods, but I'm not going to cover that right now because I want the build to be kind of evergreen. Our second aspect is Drenger's Lash, where you activate your barricade in order to create a ripple in reality that travels forward along the ground, suspending and damaging targets it hits. This aspect is what makes this build so ridiculous because it allows you to have that suspend debuff on command pretty much. This aspect is the reason why I said you should use Rally Barricade, since it has a much shorter cooldown and it will allow you to be much more aggressive with your suspend debuffs. Moving to the fragments, first we have Thread of Mind. Defeating suspended targets will grant you class ability energy. This is the first fragment which feeds into our ability regeneration, and it's kind of a must. It allows us to suspend targets, then kill them, which brings our Rally Barricade back. Next we have Thread of Generation. Dealing damage will grant us grenade energy. Again, pretty self-explanatory. You throw your grenade, start shooting at things, your grenade comes back quicker. It's another centerpiece of the build. Our next fragment is Thread of Continuity. Suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets have increased duration. Considering we'll be suspending targets very often, we need the suspend effect to be as long as possible. And finally, we have Thread of Warding. Picking up an Orb of Power will grant us Woven Mail. This can be considered more of a flex pick for this build, but I still think it's kind of a must since we cannot always destroy a tango right at our feet. And Woven Mail is just such a ridiculous damage resistance buff that we kind of need to use it as often as we can. Our exotic of choice for this build will be the Heart of Inmost Light. Using an ability will empower our two other abilities. Empowered abilities have faster regen, melees and grenades do more damage, and barricades will have more hit points. And this is the peanut butter and jelly of our build. Do you know what that means? I don't know what that means, it just means that it's important though. HOIL did get nerfed because in the previous season it used to actually give this buff for 10 seconds, now it only gives it for 5, so you just gotta play it a lot more careful and you gotta make sure you don't drop your combo. I'll talk about how to use it more effectively in the gameplay loop section of the video, but trust me, it's still incredibly good. In terms of armor stats, you should make sure that your resilience is at tier 10, that's pretty much a must for the 30% damage resistance and also for the Rally Barricade cooldown. Then, if you can, you should also make sure that your discipline is at tier 10 in order to have your grenade as often as possible. And now we are on to the mods. For your helmet, make sure you put siphon mods which correspond to your weapons. These will be our easiest way of generating orbs of power. On the arms, we're going to use grenade kickstart twice. That saucy shackle grenade is very important for our build and we want to have it up as often as we can. Then we're going to use focusing strike. It will grant us class ability energy whenever we cause damage with our melee attacks. Since our melee has 3 charges, we're not really going to be using it for the damage, we're going to use it for this cooldown reduction and in order to keep our combo alive. On our chest, we're going to be using charged up twice. This will increase the amount of armor charges we can carry from 3 to 5. On our leg armor, we're going to use innervation twice. This will reduce our grenade cooldown every time we pick up an orb of power. Then we'll put on stacks on stacks. This will grant us 1 additional armor charge every time we pick up 1 orb of power. Then on our class item, we'll use bomber twice. This reduces our grenade cooldown every time we pick up an orb of power. And finally, we'll use utility kickstart. Whenever we use our class ability, we'll get some of it back. And I do want to mention 2 seasonal mods which will be really good with our build. First, we have Untangler. Destroying a tangle with a strand weapon will suspend targets damaged by the explosion. There's a bunch of strand weapons that you can use to great effectiveness for this. The second seasonal mod I want to mention is Threaded Blast. Destroying a tangle with the strand weapon will create a larger and more damaging explosion. The same principle as the last one, basically it's just a really good mod. And now it's time for our gameplay loop. I'll be showing a bunch of footage here, but the thing I want you to focus on is the footage from the legendary Lost Sector which I was running, which is at 1830 power level. At the time I was running it, I was about 45 power levels below. And even though I was that weak, I was still able to dick on champions without much of a hassle. It will be best to start your engagements with some armor charges already on you. If you don't have any, it's not the end of the world, but it will be much easier if you do. You should always open with your grenade since you always want it to come back first. After you throw your grenade, if you're in melee range, slash at your target. If you are not in melee range, use your barricade to keep your enemy suspended for longer. From there on, close the distance, slash, then start repeating the same process. If you execute this correctly, you have your abilities up pretty much constantly. Try to keep an eye on the left corner of your screen where all your buffs will be displayed. Sadly, we can only see 4 buffs at a time, so you might need to keep count in your head. Punchy, I think it's time for you to fix this. Try to stay on your game since keeping the combo going requires a high level of APM. Also, since it's a high APM build, you have to be more aggressive than you're comfortable with, but after a couple of tries you'll get the hang of it. Try to keep this in your head. Armor charge, grenade, melee or rally, then repeat. And whenever you see a tango, grab it and either shoot it at your feet or just shoot it where it is for the explosion and go to the green remnant in order to get that woven mail. In terms of weapons, use whichever ones you deem best, but in my opinion, a great build is a great build not because of the weapons, but because of everything else. And that's pretty much it, Guardian. I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, and if you really liked it, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos coming your way. And as with the last video, I'll leave you with some gameplay of the build in order for you to have a better idea of how it works. I'll see you in the next one, Guardian.
Uh-huh.